What if the loudest people in the room are actually the ones who were never heard as children? What if power at its core is sometimes just a shield for unprocessed pain? Before we debate who Donald Trump is today, we must ask a more human question. Who was he before the towers, the titles, the spotlight? This isn't a political analysis, it's a psychological inquiry, one that invites us to look deeper than public image and beyond party lines. This is about the cost of never being emotionally seen, about what happens when vulnerability is punished and worth is only measured by achievement. Donald Trump grew up in a household where dominance was currency and performance was the only acceptable language of love. His father, Fred Trump, was famously strict, emotionally cold, and deeply driven by status. The environment in that home left little room for vulnerability. Softness, especially in boys, was not only discouraged, it was condemned. Trump's older brother, Fred Jr., was labeled too soft, a critique that followed him into addiction and ultimately an early death. That family wound didn't just hurt, it taught. And Donald, watching it all, overcorrected. He replaced softness with steel, vulnerability with bravado. He learned how to survive not by asking for love, but by demanding attention. What psychology tells us is that children who grow up emotionally invalidated often become adults with exaggerated personas. They develop compensatory strategies, controlling behavior, emotional repression, and sometimes narcissistic traits, not because they are evil, but because they are trying to protect a part of themselves they were taught to hide. If you were never safe to be seen, you learn to be loud. If your value is only acknowledged when you achieved something, you become addicted to applause. If you were never held, you might choose to become untouchable. So what might Donald Trump's inner child still be holding? Beneath the public projection, there may live a quiet fear of not being enough, a sadness that no one ever named, a longing to be loved without conditions, a mistrust of emotional closeness, a grief he may not even know is his, buried beneath years of defending instead of feeling. This inner child isn't unique to Trump. In many ways, he's an extreme mirror of what happens when emotional needs go unmet for too long. The child that isn't allowed to feel becomes the adult who doesn't know how to connect. The boy who is punished for crying becomes the man who attacks when threatened. Healing for someone like this would require something most powerful men fear: softness, not performance, not perfection, but presence. It would begin by allowing the inner child to speak, to say, "I'm scared," without being silenced. To say, "I need love," without being ridiculed. It would involve releasing the role of the defender and realizing that worth is not tied to dominance, but to being. To simply exist as you are. It would require rewriting the belief that says, "I have to win to be safe," into something far more liberating. I am safe even when I'm still. That kind of transformation doesn't come from status or applause. It comes from within, from the moment someone stops performing long enough to be real. And maybe one day even forgiving the father, not to excuse the pain, but to release the grip it still holds. Forgiveness in this context becomes an act of emotional freedom, a way to stop carrying the armor that was never truly ours. Empathy would follow, the kind that sees others not as competition, but as reflections of the same human wound. The kind that recognizes compassion not as weakness, but as the highest form of strength. If there were a healing mantra for Donald Trump's inner child, it might sound something like this. Even when no one saw my tears, my soul remembered. Even when I had to act strong, the little boy inside me just wanted to be held. And now I no longer need to prove anything. I'm already enough. I'm already free. This isn't about political loyalty. This is about recognizing that beneath every mask is a story. Beneath every dominant persona is a frightened child who learned to survive in the only way they knew how. Until we learn to see the child behind the behavior, we will keep mislabeling trauma as personality. We will keep recycling pain through systems, institutions, and leaders. Healing doesn't mean we excuse harm. Healing means we stop mistaking the wound for the person. So maybe the real question isn't, what's wrong with them? Maybe the question that changes everything is, what happened to them? And then, what happened to me? Because until we ask that, we're all just acting out old stories, trying not to feel the ones we were never allowed to tell. If this message stirred something in you, a memory, a realization, or a longing to heal, you're not alone. That's exactly why this channel exists. Here at Sacred Wounds, we turn pain into power and scars into sacred strength. So if you're ready to go deeper into healing, compassion, and emotional truth, subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who needs it. Because the world doesn't just need louder voices, it needs deeper ones. And maybe it needs yours too.